Never thought I'd write this out. For 5 years, I worked as the chief engineer on an offshore oil rig somewhere in the Gulf. I say somewhere not because I want to be mysterious, but because once you're out there, it really doesn't matter where you are. It's just water in every direction, salt in your lungs, steel under your boots, and the low hum of pressure building under your feet. You get used to it, or you pretend you do. People always imagine offshore rigs like action movie sets, explosions, guys yelling over radios, everything covered in oil. That's bullshit. Most days are quiet, boring even. You wake up, grab some eggs from the buffet, nod to the same 6 guys you see every day, check your systems, run diagnostics, fix minor crap, rinse, repeat. It's clockwork until the clock skips a beat. I took the job after my wife died. Car accident, no one's fault. Just one of those wrong place, wrong time tragedies you read about. She was everything. And when she was gone, I couldn't breathe in that apartment. Every drawer had something of hers in it. Every sound felt like a ghost. So I did what a lot of broken men do, I ran. And I ran straight into work. Straight into a place where distraction was a survival tool. The rig became my world. 12 levels of steel, hundreds of systems, miles of pipe and cable, and around 60 guys depending on the fact that nothing explodes. My job, make sure that doesn't happen. I was good at it too. After a year, they made me chief engineer. And out there, respect is everything. Doesn't matter where you're from, what color your skin is, what accent you have, if you keep the place from catching fire, people listen to you. And over time, I built something I didn't think I'd ever have again: trust, brotherhood. Guys like Benny, our electrician, ex-Navy, loud as hell, would give you his last cigarette even if it was his birthday. Or Manny, soft-spoken, always reading some old paperback during lunch, but the best valve tech I've ever seen. We weren't just coworkers. We were a crew, a team. Out there, that's all you've got. We had everything we needed, at least on the surface. Private rooms, decent food, buffet style, thank God, a rotation schedule that gave us 8 to 10 hour shifts. There was internet at one point, slow but workable, until one of the comms panels blew during a storm last year and never got replaced. Management said parts were on order. Sure. That's the thing about offshore management. They're not out there. They don't hear the way metal groans at 3 am, or how the wind can sound like screaming when it hits the right angle. They sit in offices onshore, sip coffee, and read status reports that make everything sound fine. Our rig manager, Mark, was one of those guys who always thought he knew more than everyone else. The kind who called problems challenges and accidents learning moments. He had a way of brushing off concerns that made your blood boil, especially when you knew what was really going on under the hood. We butted heads, a lot. I wasn't trying to make enemies, but when you're responsible for 60 lives, you don't play nice when someone tells you it's probably fine. Because probably fine is how people die. It started small, a sensor here and there giving false readings, a few unexplained pressure spikes, a backup valve that didn't engage during a routine test. Minor stuff, nothing critical, but enough to keep me up at night. And every time I brought it up, Mark would nod like he was listening, then send me a follow-up email saying, "Thanks for your diligence." Bullshit. I kept logs, documented everything, brought it up at every safety briefing. Guys like Benny and Manny knew something was off too, but what were we supposed to do? Shut down the rig? You don't just flip a switch and call it a day. Shutting down operations costs millions. That kind of call needs solid, irrefutable evidence, and I didn't have it. Just gut instinct and a string of malfunctions that management labeled as non-critical. Then came the storms. Not one, not two, a series. Back-to-back systems rolling through for days, wind screaming through the rig, waves tall enough to make you question your career choices. Some nights I'd sit in the control room, lights flickering, watching the pressure gauges dance like drunk toddlers. And through it all, Mark kept saying the same thing. We are operating within acceptable limits. I wanted to punch him every time he said it. I didn't know it yet, but something deep below us was already going wrong. The pressure was rising, slowly, quietly, like the sea holding its breath. And when it exhaled, it nearly took all of us with it. It was a day like any other. Well, that's how it started. I just finished a round of system checks, nothing major, just routine maintenance, and I was about to head to the mess hall for some coffee when I felt it. A vibration. At first I thought it was just the rig settling, but then it got stronger. And then just like that, it stopped, like someone had flicked a switch. You know when you've been on a rig long enough, you get this sixth sense. A gut feeling. I didn't want to admit it, but something in me whispered, this is it. I headed straight for the control room. By the time I got there, Benny was already there, eyes wide, flicking through data screens like a madman. "Pressure's climbing, man," he said, voice low and tense. "Something's wrong." I grabbed the nearest screen. The pressure was way off the charts. I'd seen spikes like this before, but never this high, not this quickly. And we weren't talking about some little valve malfunction. This was serious. The whole system was struggling to maintain pressure. The alarms should have gone off, but they were silent. I looked at Benny. "Where are the backup systems?" "Not responding," he said, his voice flat. "It's like the entire backup system is dead. It's like someone turned it off." I sprinted to the pressure valve station. The sound of my boots pounding on the metal floor echoed in the silence. Every step felt heavier, like the weight of what was happening was pressing down on me with every inch. I reached the valve, and before I could even touch it, I heard it, the low groan of metal under pressure, the kind of sound you never want to hear on an oil rig. I froze. It's one of those moments where your brain tries to process the threat, but you don't want to believe it. Is this happening? And then it hit. It wasn't a bang, it wasn't a crash. It was just a loud whoosh, followed by the sound of metal tearing like paper, a sound that I'll never get out of my head. The entire rig shuddered, a violent shake that threw me off balance. I stumbled, grabbing onto a railing just as the lights flickered and went out. The emergency lights kicked in, casting an eerie red glow over everything. I didn't know what to do, I didn't know where to go. And then the alarms went off, finally. I was at the valve station, but I could hear the chaos in the control room. Get the emergency systems online, now. Someone was yelling, I didn't know who, I couldn't think. The pressure had exploded from the well like a dam breaking, and all I could think about was getting out of there. But it was too late, the system was already compromised. We were sinking, and the worst was yet to come. The blast was like nothing I'd ever experienced. I've been in combat zones, I've seen explosions, but this was different. It wasn't just an explosion. It was the sound of everything we'd worked for being obliterated in a second. The foundation of the rig was shaking, the metal groaning under the stress of the blast. And then the worst possible sound, the cracking of the rig's superstructure. I couldn't see anything through the smoke, but I could hear the panic, the fear, men screaming over the radios. I grabbed the nearest radio and tried to call for help, but the static was so bad, I couldn't hear a damn thing. It was like the world had just stopped. I could hear my own breath, ragged and shallow, trying to process what had just happened. I could feel the heat from the explosion, and for a moment I thought I was going to burn alive right there. I'd seen enough damage in my career to know that fires on rigs aren't just fires, they're life and death situations. You can't fight them, you can only survive them. I stumbled down the hall, trying to find my bearings. The rig was in chaos. The emergency alarms were blaring and the crew was scrambling, trying to assess the damage. People were trying to reach the lifeboats, but I could barely make sense of what was happening. All I knew was that we were in serious trouble. Benny found me then. His face was covered in soot, but his eyes were wide and panicked. "We need to get out of here," he shouted, grabbing me by the arm. I nodded, barely hearing him over the alarms. I knew what we had to do. I wasn't thinking clearly. The whole damn rig was shaking, but we kept running toward the lifeboats, toward what we hoped was safety. But as I turned to head down the hallway, I saw something that made my blood freeze. The manager, Mark, standing in the doorway of his office, watching the chaos unfold. He wasn't running, he wasn't shouting orders, he was just standing there like this wasn't happening. What the hell, my mind screamed. He was supposed to be the one keeping us safe, keeping us alive. But there he was, doing nothing. It was like all the responsibility we'd placed on him, all the trust had evaporated. In that moment I knew Mark was no longer the person I needed him to be. I couldn't think about him now. I had my own problems to deal with. We made it to the lifeboats just in time. The fire alarms were still ringing, and I could hear the sound of the sea battering against the platform. I thought we might not make it, that maybe this was it. But then, we did. One of the lifeboats launched early, half empty. I don't blame them. When fire is licking your heels and steel starts bending like rubber, instincts take over. You either run or you die. I stayed behind with about 15 guys, helping get the injured out. One of the stairwells had collapsed and 2 deckhands were trapped underneath. Manny was one of them. His leg was pinned under a chunk of metal support. I remember kneeling beside him, smoke thick in the air, trying to keep him conscious while Benny tried to lift the beam with a jack. Manny just looked at me and said, "Tell my daughter I fixed things with her mom." I didn't know what to say. What the hell do you say to that? We got him out barely and dragged him toward the secondary evac point. The fire suppression system had finally kicked in, but too late. Everything smelled like melted plastic and diesel. There was this orange glow around us, and for a second, I swear it looked like the sky was on fire. That's when it happened. Second blast, smaller but closer. It threw me like a ragdoll. I slammed into a railing shoulder first. Pain shot through my chest. I couldn't breathe. My ribs were screaming. My vision blurred and the world went muffled like someone had dunked my head underwater. For a while I just lay there trying to remember how to move. I must have blacked out because the next thing I remember is Benny pulling me up, yelling something I couldn't make out. His face was covered in blood. I could feel my right side going numb. He was saying something about the emergency raft being ready, but I could barely stand. We had to crawl the last stretch. And that's when I saw them, the ones who didn't make it. Some were still in their rooms. Others must have been knocked out cold during the explosion. I knew a few of their names. I'd eaten with them, worked with them, laughed with them. And now they were just gone. It hit me like a gut punch, but we had no time to mourn. We launched the second emergency raft with 11 of us on board. The fire was spreading fast, and the rig behind us looked like something out of a nightmare. Black smoke, flames, twisted steel barely holding together. It was sinking, slow but steady. The ocean around it churned like it was boiling. The satellite comms finally kicked in barely. We sent a distress signal, hoping someone would pick it up. We had no real navigation, no engine, just currents and a prayer. We drifted for hours. I was fading in and out, the pain in my side turning into a dull throb. Someone had tied a life vest around me to keep me upright. I think it was Benny. That guy always had my back. And finally, just when it felt like we were going to be swallowed by the sea, we saw it. A search vessel, big, slow, beautiful, like a goddamn miracle. They pulled us aboard, wrapped us in blankets, checked vitals. I couldn't move much. Broken ribs, maybe internal bleeding, but we were alive, somehow. Later in the medbay I asked about the others, about the lifeboats. Turns out most made it, even Manny. He lost the leg, but he was alive. Not all were so lucky though. 8 guys never made it off the rig, 2 were never even found. The company sent reps to talk to us, support staff, they called them. Slick guys in press shirts who offered therapy brochures and signed NDAs. They said there'd be a full investigation. They always do. I gave them my logs, my reports, everything I had. I made it very clear that this wasn't just a freak accident, it was negligence, willful ignorance, Mark's decisions, the faulty systems, all of it. And yet, I knew how it would go. They'd bury it, say the storm caused it, blame it on unforeseen geological activity, maybe even say I missed something. I could already see the headlines. Heroic crew survives tragic explosion. No villains, no accountability. But I knew the truth, and so did the crew. They offered me my job back. Can you believe that? A month after I got out of the hospital, ribs still healing, lungs still wrecked from the smoke, a corporate guy calls me. Same polished voice, same empty tone. We'd love to bring you back once you're cleared. The team misses you. The team? Yeah, maybe, but that rig, that company. No fucking way. The truth is I could have gone back. Physically I was healing slowly, yeah, but healing. And technically I was still under contract. But something in me had cracked out there. Not just bones, something deeper. I'd given 5 years of my life to that rig. I worked harder than I ever thought possible. Fixed problems no one else could. Led a team through fires and storms. And for what? So some asshole in an office could cut corners and lie about system failures. So a manager like Mark, who never touched a damn wrench, could ignore warnings and gamble with people's lives. I remember the day I decided not to go back. I was sitting in the rehab center, watching the sunset. There was this older guy next to me, a former welder who'd lost half a hand on a different rig years back. He looked over at me and said, "You don't go back, you carry it with you, that's enough." And damn, that hit me. Because he was right, you carry all of it. You carry the screams you couldn't answer. The empty beds you pass on your way out. The look in a man's eyes when he knows he's not making it off. You carry the smell of burning oil, of blood on steel. You carry your guilt, your anger, your questions. And yes, you carry the bond. Because if there's one thing that stays with you longer than the pain, it's them, the crew. Benny, Manny, the guys who stuck around when they didn't have to. The guys who didn't make it out. Those bonds, they're real, stronger than anything corporate can offer, stronger than any paycheck. And that's what I think about now. Not the fire, not the explosions. I think about how we looked out for each other. How Benny tied that life vest on me while I was half out of it. How we got Manny out even when the damn rig was falling apart. How nobody left until the last man who could be saved was saved. That's the only thing that matters. So no, I didn't go back. I moved inland, got a quieter job closer to the mountains, some small engineering firm where the biggest threat is a broken coffee machine. It's not glamorous, but it's enough. Sometimes I still get dreams. The ocean, the fire, the metal bending. But more often I dream about sitting in the mess hall, laughing with the guys, or watching the sun come up from the top deck after a long shift, salt in the air and coffee in hand. There's peace in that. There's closure in that. I know some people will read this and think I'm trying to be a hero or whatever. I'm not. I'm just a guy who saw too much, lived through something that should have killed me, and came out the other side with a scarred body and a heavier heart. But I'm still here, and I guess that counts for something. So yeah, this is off my chest now. If you made it this far, thanks for reading. I don't know what you'll take from it. Maybe nothing. Maybe just a reminder that the ones risking their lives out there, whether it's on a rig, a battlefield, or a hospital floor, deserve more than silence. They deserve truth. And respect. And to be remembered. Rest easy, boys. We got out, but we never left you behind.